Thank you so much for staying with us on the program this morning on ITV. This morning, we're turning our attention to a matter that is of great concern to every single person in Nigeria, talking about the rising rate of insecurity in the country. But before we get to that, let me just remind you that, of course, Bedu, organized by Independent Television and Radio, is going to be happening this morning from 11 a.m. So if you do not have where you would want to go to, in fact, you should not have anywhere else rather than ITV Bedu, take your children there. Of course, they'll have a fun time there. Someone was talking about Easter rice just now before we came on the show. So definitely, you probably could go there right after the show and see if you can get some.
No, I feel we should have ours, us being here, should have our own fair share of everything.
I think that's catered for.
I'm looking forward to my Easter rice today.
Alrighty, so let's jump into the conversation this morning, talking about the rate of insecurity in the nation, from the north to the south to the west to the east. We hear stories, we hear reports on a daily basis of incidents of insecurity that is ongoing. What is the way forward? That is the question that is begging for answers this morning. So joining us on the show will be Tony Akeni Lemoine. He is a political analyst and, of course, a public affairs analyst as well. He's joining us via Zoom from Abuja. I don't know if he's here yet. Good morning.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We're also being joined by Austin Aigbe. He's an advocacy officer and ECOWAS liaison lead, West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, WADEMOS. He's also joining us from Abuja via Zoom. Good morning, Mr. Austin.
Morning. It's Democracy Network.
Oh, I beg your pardon. All right, so let's jump into the conversation this morning. It's insecurity. It's something that we've been talking about, and we will not stop talking about it until we actually get to see the desired change that we want. So let's talk about why we keep talking about insecurity. What is it that Nigeria is not doing right? What is it that the government is not doing right? What is it that security agencies are not doing right that is making the cases, the reports to keep rising?
When there is no consequences for action, it is repeated. In the Nigerian state, our greatest challenge has become ethnocentric mentality, in a way that we safeguard our location and try to go to other people's location to grab it. Land grabbing or territorial grabbing has become a norm, and no, the government incapacity is not able to deal with it. You realize that the Nigerian police is the sovereign, is the civil authority that is directly responsible for crimes like this. But suddenly, the armed forces have been introduced into the narrative. For instance, in the northeast, particularly northwest, where you have insurgency and banditry, the army has literally become the norm. In the south, it used to be cultism. But right now, it has moved beyond cultism, that we now have farmer-elder conflict that is domain in places like Plateau, Benue, actually in the north-central, northwest axis. It is now real in the south. In Edo, in Delta, in Ondo, there is enough invasion of cattle rearers who are looking for how to feed their cattle, then feed on the farms of people who want to feed themselves and also be able to make ends meet. Now, in an attempt for you as a farmer, maybe in Edo State, let's take a case of Urumi in Edo. Somebody is farming to be able to feed his family and maybe take to the farm and sell. Suddenly, there's an invasion of cattle who end up feeding on what you want to use to feed. And because these cattle rearers, what they usually we call elders, are well reinforced in a way because they prepare to go into your land. Because even the Holy Bible says, thank God we are in Easter, the Holy Bible says that if you want to go into the house of a strong man, you must be prepared to go into that house. So Whereas understand that going into the farms of another requires that they need to be very strong. So if you confront them, that is what results into those killings that you see somebody go to the farm in the morning with no return. Community members then go to the farmland and see the person lying down. And all of those stories that we hear, the greatest challenge is that our state security architecture is overwhelmed. Is overwhelmed. I repeat, overwhelmed with security issues that they are unable to deal with them sufficiently. And I think maybe solution can be provided. Even though I'm not an apostle of state policing because of its political nuance, but we can find a meeting point in a way that is sufficient to move Nigeria forward.
It seems you tried to talk about it earlier on the show. So let's hear from you. What are the factors that are fueling this increase in wave of violence across the country? There have been calls for defense, okay, self-defense. We have some security agencies saying that we can't do it all. We need your help. We need your assistance. You do not wait for them to come and rescue you. Calls for community policing as well. What are your thoughts on that?
See, when I heard that, it behoved on me that when a state had failed, it pushes responsibility to those who they are expected to protect. Community policing is critical. I mean, you can't take that out. Community policing is critical. The idea is that, for instance, in New York, particularly in New York, I don't know of other states in the US, and of course in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana, if the strategy is see something, say something, that's community intelligence gathering. When someone comes to your neighborhood that you don't know, it is your responsibility as a community member to flag that to security architecture. We have seen in this country wherein people flag those crimes and even go to police to report that XYZ is not known in the community and all of that. Before you know what's happening, those individuals are picked up by the police, and soon after they are released. And certain information are divulged to those individuals that you know colors, now XYZ night colors. And you see these criminal-minded individuals come to threaten those who place that call. The question is, will you ever call again? If I know about that story and someone who is close to me has been impacted by that kind of reportage, will I call the security architecture? Of course, no. You are seeing crime, but you are afraid to call because you don't know when they come for you. It's a bane of community policing or community intelligence gathering. However, asking community to harm themselves, with what? Is it with cutlasses? Because you and I know that are not permitted, cannot even be registered. The word you can register is the day gun or the double barrels. Even to register a pump action is almost like a challenge. If AK-47 is not approved, and these assailants come to your community with AK-47 or with Mark 4, how will you use day gun or cutlasses to repel them? These are critical questions. So if you want to register community policing, the police need to truly recruit those community police and train them, give them the actual gun to protect their locations. If it's coming from the DSS as the #1 intelligence gathering agency for the Nigerian state, it builds on the DSS to design a national strategy or improve, because there is a national strategy on security anyway, but that national strategy talked about organizing among the security actors so that they don't end up conflicting at each other. Beyond that is to include in the national strategy on security, national security strategy, on how to onboard community actors into the security architecture in a way that they are not necessarily reporting to political actors at the state level, but they are independent in their own community. That way, when you know that the person you are going to meet, I mean, talking about elders now, who are going to farmlands to want to cultivate, to eat those farm products, will be very conscious, knowing that this community is also prepared. And this community could get its support from other communities and there could be a force, a combined force to repel them, and they may not want to do it. But in this case, you see Plateau, that these assailants go into communities and literally kill everybody. The end must come to it. And we kept talking about this since almost more than a decade. I recall when Governor Jonah Jank of Plateau State, had to cry publicly, wept, like Jesus wept. He wept. But today, years after Jonah Jank, situations in Plateau remain unabated. It is a no-no.
Mr. Tony, if you're with us now, during the course of the opening statement, of your opening statement, or I'm not sure if it's Mr. Austin, you did say that we are where we are today because there are no consequences for action. And just recently, the governor of Edo State, Senator Mondo Okpebolo, actually is currently advocating for, if I'm not mistaken, death penalty for kidnappers caught. Now, do you think it's the way to go? And how effective is this going to be? Aside from that, are there other ways that government agencies can actually hold on to help curtail the excesses that we found ourselves today? Mr. Tony, if you can hear me.
Between your system and my point, I could barely hear you, but the little I heard, I would like to make this contribution. It is a terrible situation, an irony that we are suffering from as a nation, as a country, as a people. When you are looking for the head of we're looking for the eye of a fish, you go to the head. So if we are looking for the solution to these insecurity challenges, gross and grim as they are, we have got to bring the matter to the desk of the highest authorities, those who have the power, constitutional authority to mobilize those who are trained as police, as DSS, as the military. The buck stops at their tables. Now, when a particular ethnic group has the tyranny and supremacy of privileges to carry guns, the most sophisticated headers of a particularly known tribe can take sophisticated arms from one part of the country to the other, sack entire communities, and take over. Genocide is a commonplace thing now. Massacre every other day, every other week in the Middle Belt, and over the years it has spread and has become rampant in the South. Take Edo State, in the East. Everyone is now sleepless. Like Mr. Austin has so very efficiently, very eloquently explained the situation before us. We have a duty to hold first the authorities who are responsible for security, who are responsible for governance. It is our duty to raise these questions before them. How come that the communities that are perpetual victims do not have a backup and are not allowed to bear these arms to protect themselves, but these forces, these persons who are invaders, they are well known. Their sources of supply are even known to the DSS. And like Mr. Austin also explained, when you report these people, or occasionally when they are apprehended, in a matter of hours or at most a few days, they are returned to the society. So there is no consequence for these heinous crimes and the massacres that are taking place across the country, especially when it comes to particular tribes. Until we fix that misnomer, this thing is going to continue, because those who perpetrate these crimes know that they have the backup of the government of the day. So that is where we have to start. We heard recently, or a few days ago, the governor of Plateau State asking the people of Plateau not to take laws into their hands, not to do anything about these people who come
Right,
regularly,
Mr.
to kill
Tony,
them, to
can you
massacre
hear
them, to
me?
sack them. This same governor was going to set up, or rather has made up his mind to set up.
Really love to ask. I think I should move over to Mr. Austin. Kind of having a network glitch with Mr. Tony. But then, Mr. Austin, if you can hear me, speaking about consequences, because I love us to really talk about this. Recently, we saw the Edo State governor coming out to say that I think death penalty is the way to go for the kidnappers. Do you think that would work? Is that going to be like a permanent solution to all of this? And should other governors and security agencies also key into this? What do you think is the way forward?
Thank you. So
Right.
first is number one, the governor is not the chief security officer of the state. Not. Even though we all know and we call the governor the chief security officers without any security power. So in Zamfara state at some point, the governor of that state a few years ago had to openly claim that people should stop calling him chief security officer of the state because he's not security anywhere. What the governors could do is maybe what the governor of Edo State is doing. He doesn't have the power to actually control and bring to force certain security architecture. And that's also the weakness of the Plateau State governor that Mr. Tony was talking about. When governors cannot give orders to the commissioner of police, governors cannot give orders to the GOC, General Officer Commanding Officer, at the state level, whether in the Army, the Air Force, or Navy, it depends on the state level, is a challenge. Whereas there is a state security meeting where the governors meet with this security architecture and there's briefing. When there is conflict in that briefing, the security architecture takes order from those who have posted them there. In this case, it is not the governor of the state. When there is a conflict of interest, in quotes, between the governor's position, and that of those who posted these officers to those states, the ones that fly or the one that is adopted is the officer, the organs on top who posted these officers to the state. And that's why you see when it seems as if the commissioner of police is doing too much to beyond what is expected from the commissioner of police, you soon see that he has been redeployed or she has been redeployed. Certain action have been taken where a military general in one of the states had moved against certain actors. And it was queried that you don't do that. And the guy insisted, no, these are criminal actors. He ended up flushing them out. What happened to him? It was summoned, faced military tribunal, and eventually dismissed. And those actors, whether it's true what we read or not, these are the information that is coming out to the public. And those information aren't good for other military generals, police officers who are face to face with that kind of situation. When they know that their friends or officers or their senior in the military or in the police have had to go through a certain route, they will not go that route. The state governor needs the backing of the federal government. As of this constitutional provision today, there is no state police. The community police that we have is community policing that is supported by the Nigerian police. The volunteer security architecture that is around the state, whether it is called the one in the southwest or the one in the southeast, Ebebeagu, or the Amotekuns, these are actors that are not allowed to use sophisticated weapons. The highest weapon they can carry, and I repeat, the highest
Right.
weapon they can
If you could hear
carry.
me, because of the time frame, I'd love us to touch on other things. Just recently, I mean, on the front pages of the newspaper today, we saw Pastor Bakari coming out to say different things. And one of the major things he actually said is the fact that Nigeria is moving towards a mafian state. I don't know how true that is. But now, me thinking in my head, the question is, how did we get here? And also over the weekend, we saw some repented Boko Harams being, reintegrated back into the system. And then it begs the question of, is that not a threat to the security situation in the country? If you could touch on that real quickly.
Let me quickly just start from the last question about repentant Boko Haram. It's becoming a challenge. The Operation Safe Corridor of Nigerian Army will continue to tell us that those repentant Boko Haram have truly repented. But the question that begs for answer is, when you return them to the same community where they committed those atrocities, what does that mean for the safety of those people that is in return and the safety of those people that are there that you have returned them to? What am I saying? If I know Mr. A or Mrs. B or whatever partook in an action that led to the death of someone that is very close to me, how would you expect me to see that fellow? If truly repented, how do I justify that repentance is clear? Meanwhile, insecurity in that same location has not been abated. It continues. It doesn't send a good signal that repentant Boko Haram have truly repented, because there have also been cases where repentant Boko Haram were rearrested, were seen in the field of Boko Haram side, captured and killed. In the battlefield, they were killed. And these are actors who were supposedly repented Boko Haram. I think for truly to have repented, they need to stay in the confinement for a longer time, maybe beyond 2 years, 5 years. Get them work to do that is out of that location and keep an eye on them for a longer time. I am not against repenting. Repentance can truly exist. But when you have done criminal action that I know, and I see you on the street that you have repented, for me as a human, even though they say to err is human, to forgive is divine. Other people have said to forgive is animal, that you have to watch that person closely before you can truly ascertain that he has repented. So the second part of your question, we are not surprised. I'm truly surprised that Pastor Tunde Bakari has now come out after a long call for him to come out. Tunde Bakari was part of those who led the Save Nigerian group during Jonathan's administration, calling Jonathan all manner of names. It didn't get worse like this. It wasn't as bad as this. Yes, there were times, the kidnap of those Chibok girls and the Dapchi girls, those parts are there that during Goodluck Jonathan, this very endemic situation happened. But what is happening today is almost like an increased measure, and yet the Save Nigerian group has not emerged. Pastor Tunde Bakari, it is late, but it is good. You need to call a spade a spade. There are semblance of democratic backsliding. There are semblance of democratic upheavals that need to be addressed. In all of this, governance architecture, good governance, is a measure to arrest some of the decadence that we have in our society today. And I think that President Tinubu should listen to words of wisdom, to words coming from the people, and truly begin to meet the needs of the people, rather than pushing policies that may take time to resonate. I agree that certain policies take time. I agree. I'm a policy expert. But when a policy is going to take more than 2, 3, 4, 5 years to begin to produce, policy experts put in place incremental models that tend to address situations that are negative or negative externalities of that policy that will take time to produce results. For instance, when you talk about subsidy removal on your day one in office, what measure was in place to curtail the harsh reality of subsidy removal? Today, it's been close to 3 years now. Next month, May, will be 3 years exactly, 2 years exactly. And In that 2 years, fuel has increased from about 100 and something when he met it to running between 1,000 and 800. So 2 years after, the policy has not resulted in improvement. The savings from subsidy has not been well seen, and people say that the subsidy savings have been pulled out to certain areas that has been corruptly removed. So whether those are true or not, but I think that the Nigerian president and the Nigerian government must respond in dealing with problems arising from policy externality, negative externality of policy that truly met the goodwill of the people.
I agree. You talked about the importance of good government structures. Let's talk about the importance of good security architecture. You get to see in the foreign countries, a lot of times they make use of technology to carry out anything they want to do when it comes to security. Do we need to do that here in Nigeria? You talked a little bit about those Boko Haram insurgents who were put back into society. Don't you think that it is possible to bring them or to recruit them into the security force and let's see what they can do rather than leaving them on the streets? Like you rightly said, it's a danger to them and of course a danger to society. But if they're put into security architecture, do you think that it would help in any way?
That was a fantastic question. The truth of the matter is that it is supposed to. Elsewhere, you will expect that to work. I mean, I recall studying the NYPD structure in New York, how they're able to dismantle the drug cartel in East New York, how they went into the drug cartel, put them out right from the Bronx to Far Rockaway, and particularly in East New York in Brooklyn. And automatically, that structure was dismantled by those recruited, and the police joined them into that force, into that criminal activities, and then from the inside was able to unbundle them all. You will expect that to work elsewhere. But it may not be the case in Nigeria because we have seen soldiers who gives information to Boko Haram to act. We have seen military guys in uniform who steals Nigeria ammunition, bullets, to go and sell to Boko Haram. We have seen those. How do you not trust who is a right guy that has truly repented? It's a weird scenario, but I truly think that rather than putting them in, you could put them in a way that you give them phones to use, you track them end to end, like WhatsApp, back to back, end to end, encrypted targeting. You monitor them. Actually set up a unit that monitors this set of people, what they say to people, where they go, who they speak to, over a period of time. You can use them to nip the ball appropriately. But in this case, it is not like that. But I truly think that they will be useful to the Nigerian state. Even if they are not as useful to gather information, they can be useful to feed our country. They can do other things. You can train them in technology, train them in other things, and begin to use them to produce results. Rather than spending money on them, and they are so-called repentant, yet they could become dangerous. That's my only challenge. I am not saying that all of them repented. I am not saying too that none of them repented. That to just make it open to say repented Boko Haram, going back to their community, it's a no-no because there is no measure to monitor them. And I think I agree with you, putting them straight to the military may not be the right thing, but tracking them appropriately, if it means putting a chips on them. I mean, if it was somewhere in our other client, you put the chips on them and monitor them correctly. They don't have to know that there's a chips embedded in their skin. You just tap what you want to tap, get all the fat you want to get, and use them to launch in. I think the Nigerian government may have done that, but it may also not be producing results. And I think it's important to address other levels.
You know, when we get to hear reports in the story, in the news, and talking about security issues, communal clashes, kidnapping, and of course, insurgency ravaging the nation, We hear a lot of government officials coming out to say we're on top of the situation. But it seems as though the situation is actually on top of all of us. What do you think are practical steps or practical changes that the government needs to make, especially in the security architecture of our nation, to ensure that we curb the rates of insecurity in the country?
What a great question. And let me submit using your words. The situation is actually not under, it is on top. And using phrase or messaging that look as if you're on top of a thing, and whereas it's the direct opposite, it's what English will tell you is ironical. It's an irony for security architecture to say you're on top of situation. Somewhere in the southeast, you're on top of the situation. There is something happening in the south side, you're on top of the situation. And everywhere you're on top of the situation, why don't you come out realistically that you need help? And tell us the area where you need help. And part of it is what has come out to say, we cannot do it alone. We need the people to support us. Please support us. But in supporting us, you need to give us the weaponry. You need to give us even information. Give us training to truly support you. The community cannot support you when they don't have the support to truly support you. There is no under the situation. If we must be on the situation, we all must get involved. When I say we all must truly get involved in policing our communities. It is only through community policing that Nigeria can save from insecurity. And that community policing must be well structured, backed up by relevant laws if you need laws. Because at the end of the day, if you go to elsewhere, you see, like I was talking about Accra, Ghana just a few minutes ago. If you get to a location, maybe in Tama, in Accra, and people don't know you, you see a Ghana police coming to ask you questions immediately, within an hour. They're already there asking you, excuse me, what's the name? So they want to profile you quickly and know to do, and they monitor you for a while. And if that monitoring is not there, the community also is watching you. If we can truly get that trust in our community, I think we can achieve a good result and eventually, gradually snowball to a secure location in our country.
The reason being the fact that some state governments may actually use it in terms of politics, okay? They may use it to their own benefit rather than what it's actually meant for. Still talking about the call for self-defense, some persons say that it will actually cause more harm than good. If anyone can just suddenly stand up and say, okay, since security personnel are not available for me, let me defend myself. I don't think you can defend yourself adequately or against violence without actually using some level of violence itself. Do you think that the calls for self-defense should actually stand? And of course, community policing, how do we ensure that it's not misused?
So I think what they are saying is not individual self-defense. That would be weird. That like in the United States, where people have access to guns. In fact, there's even an association called the National Rifle Association. They register rifles. And even though they are background check for individuals, it never gets to the result. That's why you see massive killing, massive shooting. Now to Nigeria, if you do individual self-defense, we'll get to a state of anarchy quickly. But if you do community self-defense, and that's why I'm saying that training and retraining of these community actors will be relevant. Arming them appropriately will be key. To say that an individual can just pick up arm because he wants to defend himself, he can take the gun against his own neighbor within the same community. So somebody offends you, maybe call you a nasty name that you didn't like, you get home and pick up your rifle and go straight to the person's house and begin to shoot him or her. In fact, we have seen in a state where a woman who came from, I think, he traveled abroad and she came back, and the husband went there with arsenal and bombed down the house out of simple provocation, maybe. Simple provocation. So for individuals, simple provocation can lead to many deaths. That should not be the route. No, should not be. But community organizing, community volunteer group, trained and armed. We already seen them. For instance, the Amotekums are community-driven architecture. Ebebeagu, they are community-driven architecture, but they lack certain training and weaponry. I'm saying that you can include them into the system and then engage them with training and otherwise. I agree with you about political use of state policing. And I remember in the course of this conversation, I said, I am not an apostle of state police. That is the very reason why I am not an apostle of state police. In state policing, political actors during election can use them against the will of the people. You saw in Ondo state election, the Nigerian police had to, in fact, including Edo State, yes, including Edo State, the Nigerian police had to ban all the non-state security architecture. Amotekun was banned. The state security network in Edo State was banned, and people said, why do you have to ban them? Why? You understand why? Those who form them can use them. People have actually argued that is federal government not using the police at the state level? Yes, but some of those evidence look at the weakness of both.
Right, Mr. Austin. Now, speaking about the federal government, as we tend to leave the conversation here, recently the presidency came out to react to reactions and counter-reactions over the absence of the president in all of this. I mean, the president left the country during the early course of this month, and so many things has happened, has gone wrong in Plateau State, in Benue State, and the list actually is endless, with mass burials actually happening in some parts of the country. Now, what really is the impact of the president's absence in all of this? Mr. Austin.
First is that the president went to evaluate his administration in another country. He wanted to be free so that he can see what he's doing, whether it's right or wrong, whatever it is that Onanuga told us, because I'm quoting Onanuga in this case, that the president went abroad, not for vacation per se, that he went to go and review his administration, and they call it state visit, even though we also know that Emmanuel Macron left the country at that time. But one would have expected that the moment there was a security concern, that the president needed to get back in country quickly. Security is the grand norm after the Constitution that the president sworn to. The president sworn to the Constitution to protect the Constitution and the welfare and security of the people. Security is an important part of governance anywhere in the world. If your people are not safe, you are not safe, because every conversation will be around your inability to deal with insecurity. And I would have expected that the president needed to cut short that evaluation in France and get back and quickly engage in a state security architecture that drives home. The same way the president had to solve the challenge in Rivers by calling the security actors together to quickly nip whatever it is that was seen as insecurity in Rivers State, to quickly nip it on the board. Those insecurity in all the states, whether it's Borno, Benue, and all of the states where you have those security actors, is to call a national meeting of the governors, maybe of all the actors in a conference. That what do we do? We have proposed before that for farmer-elder conflict, you need ranches. Farmer-elder intervention is a private business that the private actors must take care of. I say must. The idea of looking at 1964 rules in the 21st century today is weird. You can't tell me that elders move from one location to the other. They have cattle route, and the route that development has taken over continue to be your route. I mean, it is no longer safe today. In Mali, I give you this, in Mali has ranches, local ranches. I was privileged to travel from Bamako to Kayes region about 10 hours on the road, I saw ranches in local communities. I've traveled in Nigeria from Abuja to the north, from Edo to elsewhere. I haven't seen ranches. I haven't seen ranches, local ranches. Keep them there. Go get the grasses and feed them. Number one, they will look healthier. Those cattle don't have to struggle to look for water. They don't have to struggle to eat their grasses. If you create a value chain, in fact, this is business model. You create a value chain where those who supply the grasses get a pay for doing it. And
I think we need to leave the conversation off here. Nigeria indeed has a lot to learn from more developed countries, and we have so much indeed to learn about things that would benefit our country and make us grow better. Thank you so much once again for being part of the show. Thank you for your insightful and, of course, your thought-provoking contributions to the program.